Hello everyone. This is Deborah Baker with TrustedCISO. And by subscriber request, I am doing the CISSP from start to finish. This is Security and Risk Management Part 3. So one of the big things that came out with NIST 853B, the latest release, version 5, is third-party risk assessment. It's also known as third-party risk management. But essentially, you need to investigate your company's critical third-party vendor, who they rely on. Now, when I was CISO at a company, I asked for the list of all third-party vendors. Whoa, the list that I got was, it was hundreds and hundreds. That's a little crazy. So that's why you have to figure out what are your critical third-party vendors. And for example, if you have a SaaS service running in AWS, AWS is a critical vendor. So what you should end up with is a much smaller number when you're actually doing your assessment. One of the easiest things you can do is ask that vendor for their SOC 2 report, ISO 27001 or other sort of compliance report. And of course, AWS, they are SOC 2 Type 2, and they actually have it on their website, and you can get this information once you log in, but you need to ask your vendors. Now, if they're not SOC 2 and they don't have any sort of formal compliance report, then you're actually going to have to create a questionnaire and send it to them and have them fill it out. And then you're going to make a decision with whatever you're relying on for this particular vendor. Do you want to keep them if they don't have this formal, compliance report for you? And then that's where you, and it's always upper management that makes that decision that, we're using them for this, there's a low risk. And by sending them the questionnaire, now it's on their mindset, oh, we need to get SOC 2 or we need to get ISO 27001 or some sort of formal compliance to build trust with our customers. So organizational roles and responsibility. Well, essentially a security role refers to the specific responsibilities assigned to a person within a company's security function. And their job is to help maintain the overall security of the organization. Common security roles are as follows. Senior manager, which you can think of as the decision maker, they're ultimately responsible. And when it says ultimately responsible for ensuring due diligence of the security program, you're really talking about executive management. So you're talking about even above the CISO, which is a Chief Information Security Officer. You're talking about VPs, CEO, and board level individuals. Now there's also security professionals. And so these are the people, the implementers. They're the ones that are actually carrying out the processes. They're making sure the vulnerability analysis, the scanners are being run and ensuring that you're actually patching the critical and high vulnerabilities, things like that. And so you'll hear these as security engineer, information security officer, or computer incident response team member, which is also referred to as CERT. And these are some more roles. So asset owner, within the ISC2 CISSP, they describe the asset owner as one person that is responsible for classifying information and protecting it, like that solution. Now this is different from how asset owners really used that you'll normally hear it in the corporate world. Typically, and especially with the onset of privacy, which is really, big impetus with NIST 853B, version 5, and just, regulations and everything, the asset owner typically is the person responsible for a particular server or software within a large organization, and they are actually responsible for the data that is stored and protecting that data on that device. But as far as the ISC2 and CISSP exam, there is one person called the asset owner for that organization, and they're responsible for classifying the information and ensuring that it's secure. Custodian, again, this is only an ISC2 CISSP role. I have never heard of a cybersecurity custodian. So for the ISC2 CISSP, you need to understand that custodian is an individual who is accountable for executing the security policy and meeting the requirements set by senior management. In reality, you are talking about security engineers, security analysts, security operations center personnel. I've never, like I said, in real life heard of this, but you need to learn it for the exam. And so for the exam, custodian is the person that's accountable for executing the security policy. User, yes, you will hear user, you'll hear end user. In terms of for the CISSP, user is used whether you're an end user, and that's typically how you will hear it discussed, especially in the commercial world, or operator, which is a little, again, this is different because user usually would call a person an operator, like, you know, they're Security Operations Center, they're an operator. Just learn it the way the CISSP says it. So a user could be either an end user or an operator, and it pertains to individuals who are granted authorization to access a secure system. And then finally, we have auditor. You can think of the auditor, they can either be internal audit team or they could be a third-party auditor from an external company that comes in. And the role of an auditor is to examine and validate that you are actually doing what you say you're doing. So are you implementing your security controls as it's stated in your organization security policy? So that's an auditor. Now, in building a security program, you want to choose a framework or a standard. You don't have to, but for FISMA, you have to choose a framework and build your security program. But it makes sense because basically you have a goal. This is what we want to see. You know, how do we meet? In the commercial space, typically it's NIST Cybersecurity Framework, which is NIST CSF. And this is another one of those things that learn it the way the CISSP says it. They love COBIT. In the commercial space, I personally have not seen a customer that has asked me about COBIT. But as far as CISSP is concerned, they think COBIT is a #1 framework. So what I see in the commercial space is NIST cybersecurity framework. But learn it to pass the exam, it's COBIT. So if they ask you the #1 framework that's used, choose COBIT. So sometimes you have to learn the information the way they want you to. So NIST 853B, these are controls. There's hundreds of them. And what you can think of is that NIST CSF is the framework, and then the controls, the individual controls, technical controls, are in the NIST 853B. We also have ISO, the International Standards Organization, 27001. And that's international. So in the commercial space, you want SOC 2. If you have a SaaS product, cloud product, it needs to be SOC 2. For international space, you want to have ISO 27001. That's the standard everywhere outside of the United States. And it's another framework. It's very similar to SOC 2. It's 96% the same as SOC 2. Center for Internet Security, that's CIS, they have best practices for configuration. So if you want to know how to configure AWS securely, your Linux server, your Windows OS, Mac OS, whatever, you want to know how to configure it securely, use CIS. So it's really the benchmark for security configuration. And there's the NIST Risk Management Framework, which this is for the federal space and essentially maps back to FISMA, but essentially it says choose a framework, and there's a basic controls that you have to, a minimum security controls that have to be met, and you have to build a security program that encompasses your whole organization. And the risk management, what it has to do with is you cannot have 0% risk. You're always going to have some kind of risk. You can buy every single product and configure it securely. There's still going to be a risk of a hack because one employee could click on that link and go to that server and pull down malware. There's always risk, or your third-party vendor could get compromised and they have some sort of access into your network. So what it is there's a whole series of steps, but you're going to be doing risk assessments, and then your executive management is going to decide, okay, yeah, we're going to buy this tool, or we're going to do this. This makes sense. And there's also there's a risk versus reward in that, if you secured everything, you wouldn't be able to get anything done. You can, as an example, I was locking down my website, and I said, I only want to be able to get to my website from my home network. The problem was when I did that, even the scanners, the vulnerability scanners and things like that I was using to automatically scan my website, they could no longer get to my website. So yes, I have it to where you can only get to it, but now I'm not able to scan for these vulnerabilities, and a lot of the security features that I had for my website didn't work. So it's like, okay, this is not a good idea now. So, and that's kind of how you have to think of risk management. Yes, we need to, an example would be like, oh, we don't want phishing. Well, we're not going to use email anymore. Well, that's ridiculous. You have to use email. So, that's just an example. We also have Information Technology Infrastructure Library, which originally came from Great Britain, and it's best practices for your information security program. Due diligence and due care. You want to make sure that you are doing your due diligence, because if you are hacked and if there's a lawsuit, they are going to say that you didn't do your due diligence if you weren't doing your due diligence. Okay. And so what it means is, am I doing the basics for security? Can I say, yes, I have security policies, processes, and procedures. Yes, I have an asset inventory. Yes, I vulnerability scan. Yes, I patch, my critical and high vulnerabilities. Are you doing the basics? Do we have antivirus, and now you really want to have an EDR, which is endpoint detection and response on all of your endpoints. Not only do you want to secure your network, your machines, your cloud, but you want to be able to show it, and have these policies and be meeting these policies. Due care is taking action and actually following the procedures and the policy. So yes, we have this security policy. And yes, we are actually doing what we say we are doing. And then operational security is the ongoing maintenance of due diligence and due care. So essentially, yes, we are patching these vulnerabilities. Yes, we're doing these scans. Here, I can show you. Yes, we're actually patching and we're actually doing these things. So that's what, and this, not only is this important to protect your network, your cloud environment, your company, but it's also important if you are ever breached, you can show, yes, I was doing these things. Also, if you have cyber security insurance, you have to show that you're doing your due diligence, that you're actually doing these things. Because if you have a breach, they're going to come in and they're going to check and they're going to be like, okay, were you actually patching? Show me you were patching. Let me see, what's, and they're getting more and more stringent in order to say, well, you weren't doing your due diligence, so we're not going to give you the payout. So it's really important to be doing what you are saying you are doing. Thank you so much for watching. This is Deborah Baker with Trusted CISO. Please remember to like, and if you enjoyed this video, to subscribe and hit the notifications bell, because I'm going to be continuing on with the CISSP. Thanks for watching.